Imagine sending your child to school and receiving a call that a teacher shaved her head without permission. What would you do? It started on a Thursday morning in Springfield, Ohio. The sun was already high, casting sharp shadows on the sidewalks and glinting off the windows of Lincoln Middle School. Students shuffled through the front doors, backpacks slung over their shoulders, sneakers squeaking against the polished floors. 12-year-old Jada Reynolds walked in just like every other day, head held high, backpack snug against her small frame, and her natural curls styled into a neat puff that her mother had helped her arrange before dawn. It wasn't elaborate, but it was hers, and to Jada it felt like wearing a crown. Jada loved school, even if sometimes it felt like she had to work twice as hard to be seen and heard. She was quiet but observant, the kind of student who never caused trouble but still somehow drew attention, and not always the good kind. Her first two classes passed without incident. History was engaging, algebra was tedious, and she had just begun doodling in the margins of her notebook when she noticed Mrs. Linda Harper staring at her. Not the usual pay-attention look. Something different, something unsettling. At first, Jada ignored it, tucking a loose curl behind her ear and focusing on the board. But when the bell rang, instead of dismissing the class, Mrs. Harper called her name. "Jada, stay behind for a moment, please." Her stomach twisted. She hadn't done anything wrong. She zipped up her pencil case and approached Mrs. Harper's desk. The woman leaned in, her voice low but sharp enough for the lingering students to hear. "Your hair," Mrs. Harper said, pinching the air above Jada's head as if it were something dirty. "It's becoming unruly, a distraction. You need to fix it." Jada blinked, confused. Her hands instinctively touched her hair. She had just styled it that morning. What was wrong with it? I thought it was fine," she stammered. "It's not. I'll help you take care of it," Mrs. Harper said, already standing as if the matter were settled. "Come with me." Jada hesitated. She glanced at the clock, thinking of her lunch plans with friends, but she followed, because that's what you did when an adult at school gave an order. They walked down the hallway past rows of classrooms until they reached the nurse's office. Mrs. Harper knocked, and when no one answered, she unlocked the door herself. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and paper towels. In the corner stood a metal cabinet stocked with bandages, cotton balls, and, tucked on the bottom shelf, an old pair of hair clippers. Jada's eyes widened. "Sit," Mrs. Harper said, patting the vinyl cot. "Wait, what are you doing?" Jada asked, her voice cracking. "Relax, it's just a trim. You'll thank me later," Mrs. Harper replied, grabbing the clippers as if she'd been waiting for this moment. Jada sat frozen, too scared to run, too shocked to protest. The clippers buzzed to life with a loud whir. Mrs. Harper didn't hesitate. She pressed them against Jada's head and began shaving. Jada felt the cold metal scrape across her scalp, followed by the horrifying sound of her hair falling to the floor. Chunk after chunk, her curls vanished, and with them, something inside her shattered. Mrs. Harper wasn't careful. She wasn't gentle. She left jagged patches, making it look like an accident or a punishment. When she finally turned the clippers off, the room was silent except for Jada's shallow breaths. Her hands shook as she touched her head, feeling the uneven stubble. "There," Mrs. Harper said briskly, "much better. Now you won't distract anyone." Jada didn't speak. She couldn't. But the worst part wasn't over yet, because what happened next would bring someone to the school who no one was prepared to face. Mrs. Harper seemed almost proud as she wiped the clippers clean and shoved them back into the cabinet as if crossing off a task. She didn't even look at Jada again. "Go on back to class," she said, waving her hand dismissively. Jada stood slowly, her legs unsteady. She could feel the stairs before she even stepped into the hallway. Two students passing by froze, their eyes widening. One let out a low whistle, whispering something to his friend, who snickered. Jada lowered her head and hurried to her next class, gripping her backpack straps like they were the only things keeping her upright. When she slipped into her seat, the teacher barely glanced at her, but the students did. Whispers spread like wildfire. What happened to her hair? Did she lose a bet? Was it a dare? Jada kept her eyes on her desk. Her scalp stung from the clippers and the shame. But Mrs. Harper, she carried on as if nothing had happened. That was when Jada realized something ugly. She wasn't supposed to fight back. She wasn't supposed to speak up. She was supposed to sit there, humiliated and accept it as normal. But she couldn't. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone under the desk, breaking school rules without hesitation. Her fingers flew across the screen. "Mom, please come get me. Something bad happened. Please." She hit send and slipped the phone back into her lap just as the teacher turned around. Across town at the Springfield Police Department, Sergeant Maya Reynolds was in the middle of a briefing when her phone buzzed. She glanced down, expecting a routine update, but the message from her daughter made her blood run cold. She didn't think. She didn't apologize. She stood, grabbed her jacket, and was out the door in seconds. In the parking lot, she gripped the steering wheel, her breaths heavy. This wasn't just a mother's worry. It was the fury of a woman who had spent her career protecting others, only to realize her own child wasn't safe in a place meant to nurture her. Back at school, Jada sat rigid in her seat, waiting, her eyes blurred with unshed tears. She had no idea her mother wasn't coming quietly, and when she arrived, everything would change. The minutes dragged. Jada tugged at her sleeves, wishing she could hide her shaved head. When the bell finally rang, she didn't move. Students rushed past, some openly staring, others pretending not to look. Her friends, if they were still her friends, said nothing. Then the intercom crackled. "Jada Reynolds, please report to the front office. Your mother is here." The class turned to look at her. Someone muttered, "You're in trouble." Jada didn't care. She grabbed her backpack and bolted. She sprinted down the hallway, her heart pounding until she turned the corner. And there stood her mother, tall and unyielding. For the first time all day, Jada could breathe. She ran into her mother's arms, burying her face in her chest. Maya knelt, lifting Jada's chin gently. When she saw her daughter's butchered hair, something inside her snapped. "Who did this?" she asked, her voice low and dangerous. Jada swallowed hard. "My teacher, Mrs. Harper?" Maya nodded once, sharp and precise. "Show me." Hand in hand, they marched down the hallway. But when Maya Reynolds reached that classroom, she wasn't just a mother anymore. She was a force no one could ignore. The hallway fell silent. Students peeked out of classrooms. Teachers froze mid-sentence. Even the assistant principal stepped into the hall. But one look at Maya's face made him retreat without a word. Jada led her to room 207. Maya didn't knock. She pushed the door open. Mrs. Harper, standing at the whiteboard, froze mid-word. The class fell silent. Every eye locked onto the woman in uniform, her badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. For a moment, no one moved. Then Maya spoke. "You," she said, her voice cutting through the room. Mrs. Harper paled. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Maya stepped forward. "My name is Sergeant Maya Reynolds. I am the mother of the child you put your hands on today." "Mrs." Harper's lips trembled. I thought her hair was—" "You cut her hair without permission. You humiliated her," Maya said, each word deliberate. "You decided her natural hair was a problem." The room was dead silent. Mrs. Harper shrank back. "I didn't mean—" "You didn't think," Maya snapped. "You acted out of ignorance, and you did it because you thought no one would challenge you." She turned to the class, then back to Mrs. Harper. "You will apologize. Right here, right now." Mrs. Harper's face twisted. Shame, guilt, fear. I'm sorry, Jada," she stammered. Jada didn't respond. She didn't need to. Maya gave a single nod. "And after today," she added, her voice icy, "you'll answer to more than just me." As they turned to leave, the assistant principal, Mr. Carter, rushed into the hallway, flanked by security. "Sergeant, please, let's handle this calmly," he pleaded. Maya didn't blink. "You should have handled it the moment your teacher assaulted my daughter. Now it's too late for damage control." In the conference room, Mr. Carter stumbled through empty promises. Investigations, suspensions, sensitivity training. Maya leaned forward. "You will suspend Mrs. Harper immediately. You will issue a public apology, and you will ensure no child is punished for their culture or identity." She stood, gripping Jada's hand. "If you don't, I will file a lawsuit, and I'll bring the media with me." Mr. Carter slumped in his chair. "Of course, we'll do everything you've asked." The next morning, the story exploded. News outlets picked it up. The school board held an emergency meeting, with parents and reporters packing the room. Maya stood at the microphone, Jada beside her. "My daughter's hair is not a distraction. Her blackness is not something to be fixed. It's something to be celebrated and protected." Applause erupted. Some parents wiped tears. Students nodded fiercely, finally feeling seen. Mrs. Harper resigned a week later. The district implemented new policies not to police students' appearances but to protect them. Staff underwent cultural sensitivity training. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And for Jada, something had changed. She walked taller now, even as her hair grew back. She knew what it felt like to be hurt, but also what it felt like to be defended fiercely and unapologetically. That knowledge would stay with her forever. If there's one thing to take from their story, let it be this. Never let anyone decide you're too much or not enough because of who you are. Your identity, your roots, your pride, they're not distractions. They're your power. Stand tall. Speak up. Protect your crown. And if you believe stories like Jada's deserve to be heard, share them. One voice can make a difference, but together we can change everything.